ஏதன் கண்ணே நிலையாகி இருந்திடுமே உலகமெல்லாம் எதனின்று அனைத்துலகும் எழுமோ மற்றிவையாகும் எதன் பொருட்டாம் எதனால் வையமெல்லாம் எழுந்திடும் எல்லாமும் எதுவே ஆகும் அதுதானே உலகொருளாம் சத்தியமாம் அச்சொருகம் அகத்தில் வைப்பாம் தேவனார் ஆர்மனன் தேருவன் என் மனம் ஆதியாம் என்னால் அறிபடுவே தேவனே ஆகுமே ஆகையால் ஆர்க்கும் சுருதியார் ஏகனாம் தேவனே என்று. Namo Ramana, by Bhagavan's immense grace for meditations on Ulladu Narpadu Anubandham, I have now come to the second segment, the segment being the Anma Tattva Vilakkam. That is the segment of 5 verses from 6 to 10, which explain the nature of Atma Tattvam, or in the often misused word, the nature of God, where even the greatest of angels today hesitate to take that word of the Supreme as God, but we will be taking that word during this session quite often. But these are Bhagavan's translated works from the various scriptures, and he has found it that it will benefit us. So in that spirit, we are meditating on verse number 6 and 7, which explain the Anma Tattvam from slightly different perspective from what Bhagavan is going to teach us in verses 8, 9 and 10. In verses 8, 9 and 10, we will find Bhagavan's teachings come through. In verses 6 and 7, for reasons that must be really good for our sake, Bhagavan has introduced these 2 verses from scriptures. And this verse goes like this. Devan aar manam theruvan en manam ஆவியாம் என்னால் அறிபடுவே தேவன் நீ ஆகுமே ஆர்க்கும் சுருதியால் ஆகையால் ஆர்க்கும் சுருதியால் ஏகனாம் தேவனே என்று. Now the translation from Sadhuvam Swamigal. This is a question answer interaction between a disciple and a guru. This verse and next verse can be taken as one after another sequentially, say the commentators, and we will find the reason when we take up the second verse, that is verse number 7. But we will stick exclusively to verse number 6 today. The meaning by Sadhuvam Swamigal goes like this. The disciple asks in this dialogue, the disciple asks, who is God? Devan Yar. So pretty simple and direct, and the most feared usage directly presented to us. Who is God is the question. Devan Yar. Then Sadhuvam Swamigal writes, the Guru replied with a counter question. There is often this interaction with spiritual teachers who don't answer questions straightforward with plain answers. They will answer only with counter question. So there is a popular joke that when a priest is asked about this, why whenever I ask some question, you ask a counter question and don't reply a straightforward answer. The question the priest asked, why shouldn't I? So that is also answered with a counter question. Okay? But the beauty of the counter question is that it pushes the mind of the seeker back inward, whereas a positive answer may make him falsely rely as though a solution lies outside of him. So it is in that sense that the gurus, they always put a counter question: for whom is this? For whom is this doubt? Like that, and they don't give a straight answer, which the mind will feel as though that answer is the truth. So the counter question is, the disciple asked once again, who is God? The guru replied with a counter question: who knows the mind? Who knows the mind? Thereby implying that he who knows the mind is God. He who is aware of the mind is God. The disciple said, that is, Devanya is replied, is counter questioned by the guru as Yar Manam Teruvan, who is knowing the mind, and the disciple asked, En Manam Aviyam Ennal Aripaduve. My mind is known by me when I remain as the soul, when I remain as the observer of thoughts. Then my mind is known by me, the soul. Then the Guru declared. Therefore, since the scriptures, the Shrutis declare that God is one, you are that one God when you remain as an observer of your thoughts. The Guru says, Devanni ahume Agayal arkum Agayal Devanni ahume. Therefore, you are the one God. Because the Shrutis say that God is one. There is only one God who witnesses the mind, who is Sakshi to the mind. Now from my mind I have shifted to the mind, specifically with some purpose. So note that whoever is the witness of the mind, that is God, says the Guru. So there ends the question and counter question for us. The disciple asks, who is God? The counter question from the Guru is, who is it that knows the mind? And the disciple truthfully replies that it is me when I am in observer mode, rather than by a driven mode, rather than on a user mode. When I am driven by thoughts, I am a jiva. When I use my thoughts, I am a jiva. But when I am a mere witness to my thoughts, then as though a car is reversed and parked into a shed, in reverse we go and join the ever-present Sakshi within everyone. As the Sakshi is present within everyone, unaffected by all the happenings, everyone is having this eligibility, just like we have the air common to breathe. This Sarva Sakshi is within each one of us. So it is not some special ability of anyone. But if we can be not running after the thoughts, not be driven by the thoughts, not be a user of thoughts for some benefits, and be an observer of thoughts, then there we are the Sakshi, and we ourselves are the one God that Shruti say as the lone God that is ever existing. So with the one God who is existing, we go and join when we take this observing of thoughts, observing of the mind more. Now, this is something different from what Bhagavan teaches in the Hridayamam Guhainapad Ekamam Brahmam Matram, that is Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram Aham Aham Iti Sakshat Atma Rupena Bhakti, which we will be seeing later. Here, God's another nature as Sakshi is now brought to us. So we need to see Bhagavan's own treatment of this before we embark on our journey in this. That is, does Bhagavan acknowledge in his elsewhere, apart from this translation, that the Sakshi Bhava is there, where one can go and join with the Ishvara rather than be a mere subject, mere puppet to the drivings of karma and thoughts. So I read from talk number 68. So here Bhagavan says, Vritti, page number 76 in the Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Vritti belongs to the Rajasic or active mind. Vritti means thoughts, the mind mode, the thinking mode belongs to the Rajasic or active mind. The Sattvic mind, the mind in repose, is free from vrittis, is free from it. The Sattvic is the witness of the Rajasic. The Sattvic mind, which is in repose, which is not dividing thoughts as good and bad. I like this thought, I dislike this thought. What is the cause, what is the effect? No such analysis is there, it is merely witnessing. Then it is in sattva, it is in repose, it is unaffected by thoughts. When thoughts do not have good and bad, like and dislike, cause and effect, then the observation, the awareness is free of the thoughts, is not affected by the thoughts. There we get into the Sakshi mode. That's what Bhagavan says here. When in Sattvic mode, when in not driven, not user mode, then merely observing when we retain without like or dislike, without good or bad, without cause or effect, then we are in Sattvic mode. The Sattvic is the witness of the Rajasic. It is no doubt true consciousness. Still, he has not told here that witnessing consciousness is God. But let us go ahead. Sattvic is the witness of the Rajasic. It is no doubt true consciousness. Still, it is called Sattvic mind because the knowledge of being the witness is the function of the Abhasa, reflected consciousness only. The mind is itself Abhasa. Such knowledge implies mind. The mind is in itself, is by itself inoperative. Therefore it is called Sattvic mind. Such is the Jivan Mukta's state. It is also said that his mind is dead. Is it not a paradox that a Jivan Mukta has a mind and that it is dead? This has to be considered in argument with ignorant folk. It is also said that the Brahman is only Jivan Mukta's mind. How can one speak of him as Brahma with the knower of the Brahman? Brahman can never be an object to be known. This is, however, in accordance with common parlance. So, to be a Brahmavit, one has to identify with the Brahman. Now comes the suggestion from Bhagavan. Sattvic mind, that is witness mind, unaffected mind, is surmised of the Jivan Mukta and of Ishvara. Sattvic mind is surmised of the Jivan Mukta and of Ishvara. Otherwise, they argue, how can the Jivan Mukta live and act? The Sattvic mind has to be admitted as a concession to this argument. So, the Tripudi of witness, act of witnessing, and the witnessed is admitted as a matter of argument, but the significant portion is Bhagavan is introducing that verse for our knowledge, for our analysis and understanding as the sixth verse. The sixth and seventh verse, that is why I said, are a slight departure in the Abhasa mode itself. Is there a mode we have to understand which will help in coming over to the Brahmam Eva, Hridaya Kuhara Madhye, Kevalam Brahma Matram. To come to that, will some explanation from the scriptures, will it be of help? And to my mind, these two verses are of great help in coming to the mode. Just understanding, not the practice of what they indicate. We can understand why Bhagavan has introduced them and then continue our practice of Atma Uchara. So it is only in that perspective that we are embarking on a look at this verse. That is, the understanding of this verse should go to strengthen our practice of Atma Vichara. It is not to introduce any new practice, but to understand and to strengthen our existing practice of Atma Vichara. Now coming back to the witness mode, the Yar Manam Arivan. En Manam Aviyam Ennal Aripude. Now the Manas Sakshi is the common parlance reference to this, that God is the Manas Sakshi, He is the unaffected witness. Since He is the unaffected witness, He is free of all karmas. Bhagavan will be explaining to us the unaffected nature in another way as the Sannidhi mode later. When we take up this verse, we will look at that. How Ishvara can be seen as the unaffected Spurana in his explanation. But now we will stick to the witness explanation, that it is common reference in India that everybody has a Manasakshi. You act as per your Manasakshi. When all pleadings they fail, then the arguer just says, whatever your Manasakshi says, do by that. Now it need not be said. Ultimately, the actions bounce off the Manasakshi. Where it is told, we don't know, but it comes back definitely so far as we are the doer. Now, this Manasakshi becomes clear to us in one episode of Kanakadasa. So that I have written, I would like to go into that so that it is very clear that this is the time where Kanakadasa is in Vyasaraja's ashram, and his greatness as a devotee is very well understood by the Guru, but the others do not understand this. And the episode I have seen is that Purandaradasa comes and in one glance he is able to make out, and he asks Vyasarajar why the greatness of Kanakadasa is not known, why is he made to serve by standing outside. Then Vyasarajar says, these rules we have to observe anyway. People will learn when they can. Just see how today we will do something with where Kanakadasa's greatness will come, but see how it just bounces off those who are not observing. It is actually Ekadasi which has spread over 2 days. The second day also is Ekadasi, then only Dwadasi comes, and the ashram people are all in Upavasa, are fasting, and many of them are young people. So the Guru calls them all on the second day and says, I'll give you this fruit. You go into a place where nobody can see you and have this fruit, because the town people should not feel that we are not keeping fast. At the same time, you are all young people. I don't want you to put to this much of fasting. So everybody goes and has their fruit in various places of hiding, whereas Kanakadasa brings back his fruit uneaten, and Vyasaraja asks in front of everyone, why is it that you have not taken the fruit? And Kanakadasa says, Guruji, you have said that I should eat this in a place where nobody sees me, but I and my thoughts are all witnessed by the God within me. There is not a single moment my ego or my thoughts are not observed by the Sakshi within. Therefore, I understood you are asking me to understand that there is no place or no time where God does not witness me and my actions. So that is the Sakshi Bhava. Sakshi Ishvara, that is a proposition, the observer of the mind, the observer of the thoughts, unaffected observer of the thoughts, which is presented to us for understanding in that verse. Now, the moment we understand this, that the Tripurti is still retained, But there is a possibility of absolute purity, absolute sattvic nature, where Bhagavan says, for argument's sake, let us take that Jivan Mukta and Ishvara are in this mode of Sakshi Bhava. Just for argument's sake, just how they relate to the Tripuri, how Bhagavan is able to act. To explain that, let us propose that they are in the unaffected witness mode. To confirm that, Bhagavan says to Chadwick has this habit of going around Bhagavan's meditation hall, the hall in which he was seated for so many years. He will do pradakshina of Bhagavan, and while doing the pradakshina, it is the time when Bhagavan's body is afflicted by the cancer. He hears Bhagavan moan out of pain. There is a moaning that is heard from Bhagavan. He is surprised and comes in and asks Bhagavan, is it not that the jnanis should not feel any pain? Bhagavan says, why do you assume like that? That, in fact, it is like so many elephants walking on this hand. I am not sure which hand. So, Bhagavan points to the hand and says that, and Chadwick writes, Bhagavan tells him, it is not that pain is not felt, but if there be pain, let it be. The existence of pain, the beginning, the existence and the end of pain is not disturbed, is not liked or disliked. This should be or this should not be. Is not the witnessing consciousness. So in that explanation to Chadwick, Bhagavan gives us this support in one sense, which has to be relinquished in the Brahmameva, Kevalam Brahmamatram. This support has to be dropped there. But this is the witness mode that Bhagavan says there. We find that this witness mode in the Tripuri is the Adhara for so many sadhanas in so many religions. All the sadhanas, now this watching or witnessing is present in most of the religions. The watching means the unaffected watching. We will find in many of the scriptures all over in many religions that continue to watch the happenings. You left your watch, you stopped watching, you went off to sleep. These mentions of how the consciousness can be in watching mode or witnessing mode are mentioned in the religions, at least that I have come across. Now, my own experience with the Sakshi mode is that I was introduced in 2003 to this, and as it is part of a verse, I can share with you what happened. That day in 2003, it was March 1st, and that was the day in which Indian match was going on against Pakistan in South Africa. It was World Cup, and I was listening to this gentleman who was giving me the Upadesha on Sakshi Bhava. As he understood it, now one of my thoughts was the match has already started, and I am here 4-5 kilometers away from home. Then, because my problem with life was of such nature, I put aside that thought and listened to him. And he was pointing out how in observing anything, we have serious likes and dislikes. We say this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, and we have attachment, and we participate in our interactions with the sensory world without looking at that. So he said, can you observe that as it is happening? Can you see something and observe the likes and dislikes arising in you? Can you hear something and can you see the likes and dislikes arising in you? Now, cricket was something I was almost fanatic about, and India had to win every match. This was that, and my attachment to cricket was of such nature that if New Zealand is playing South Africa in New Zealand, I'll be seeing that, or I'll be hearing about it. Now that afternoon I came home and Saeed Anwar was scoring century. He was scoring century, he was on the way. Now, what Sharmaji had informed me, had taught me in those few minutes, somehow, I can't say how, I could easily see that happen inside me. Of course, before that, as I have shared with you, I have spent many years with Kumar sir, practicing whatever epics he was practicing. Then the Japa Mantram from Kanchi Mat, Vijayendra had come, and for 3-4 years that was going on. And how Venkatachalapati, the Japa Mantra on whom it was given, how he brought me to witnessing, I don't know. And his mantra is of such nature that he did not leave any guilt in me. I did not feel that I have dropped that mantra. I am not doing the mantra anymore. No such feeling was there. Such a beauty, such a gentleness, the bringing of the jiva to the place it should, and then getting ahead. For some jivas, he could have given mukti itself. I don't know about that. But for me, this was the role he had, and the mantram, it brought me to witnessing. And that day, the moment my eyes were on the TV, but my attention was on my mind. How rare this way. In 92, in 93 or some year, in that World Cup, Saeed Anwar in Chennai was given runner and he went on to score 192. Why these people are giving like this? They should not. Today at least they should not. These thoughts are coming. So I am able to observe that. The eye is on the TV, but the attention is not primarily there. The attention is on my inner like and dislike. Immediately, the mind started getting quieter. The thoughts that were karmic in nature, that would have led on sequentially with the good and bad, the good and the bad in me, the primary division in consciousness, would have led to further and had been leading me into further thoughts. They all started falling away. And somehow I could take to this like fish to water. Somehow I can't explain how. I started practicing that, and within a short time, I could practice walking in the park, listening to the cassettes. Then the teaching was that I should listen to any sound in that Sakshi Bhava. So it extended to whatever listening was happening, whether I was dealing with some person or the other, the interactions were from the Sakshi Bhava, and the thought-free state had come. But somehow I had not addressed the ego yet, and Bhagavan had to come as who am I, and the ego had to be removed. But that was for whatever reason, I can't tell, but that is the nature of Sakshi Bhava. In Sakshi Bhava, what happens is when I used to walk in the park, when I come to Sakshi Bhava, the good and the bad are removed. First, I will be able to observe the mind is not in the park. The mind has gone off in its roamings. This should not have happened to me, that should have happened, all that. But the moment I come to Sakshi Bhava, I come to the sensory world. That means the mind's roamings are cut. I come to the sensory happenings. I see the butterflies, I see the dirt, I see whatever I see, but no liking of butterfly, no disliking of the dirt strewn around. Then what happens? The mind becomes sattvic. When the like and dislike are removed, when the cause and effect are removed, the mind becomes sattvic and comes into. So where it helps us in Atma Vicharam, is that where it helped me in Atma Vicharam was letting go of thought was not difficult. When Bhagavan says, when a thought arises, let it go. Because of the practice of the Sakshi Bhava, as mentioned in this verse, I could easily come to who am I, because there was no prevarication with the other thoughts. So the who am I turning inward and holding the eye had become very easy. So the other mode of letting go of thought is surrender. That the Sakshi Bhava, if we can practice, that is the way of taking, when Bhagavan says let go of thought, if you look at the thought without like or dislike, in Atma Vicharam, Bhagavan says when a thought arises, do not pursue it. Now, so far as like and dislike is there, we will pursue the thought. Now, when it is looked upon without like and dislike, it drops off. What happens in witnessing? That when we witness the sensory plane is crossed. There is no like and dislike actually in that plane. So only we are aliens, like Bhagavan says, like Ganapati Muni says, Bhagavan is an alien who has come into this world to help us out. Bhagavan says, or this Guru says, all of us are aliens. We don't belong to the sensory world. We imagine ourselves to be citizens or denizens of the sensory world, but we are not that. We are the pure Sakshi, not attached to any of this. So when we are in Sakshi mode, we cross that plane. When we observe the sensory happenings, we cross that. When we observe the breath, that's why Bhagavan says observe the breath. He doesn't say control the breath. When you observe the breath, you cross the breath and you are able to observe the thoughts. So when you observe the thoughts, if we can look at it without like and dislike, it drops and one is able to easily do Atma Ucharan. The other mode and an equally efficacious mode is surrender. Now, what thoughts I would get when I had gone to Tiruvannamalai to practice Bhagavad, that is after this practice of Sakshi Bhava, when I knew still there was something that was wrangling inside me, the fragrance was not complete, the thread was not cut, I could go and take a room in Tiruvannamalai and start Atma Ucharan. Now there, what would be the thoughts that would come to me when I look? It would be about the problem, about my daughter, wife, or my mother. These are the thoughts that would come. Now, the surrender marga of letting those thoughts go is to clearly understand that it is Bhagavan who is taking care of them. That it is not me who is taking care of them. It is Bhagavan who is taking care of them wherever they are. That understanding helps us let go of the thought. Either you can directly witness without like and dislike, then the thought is dropped. Or if when we have, like us, like all of us, we have firm faith in Bhagavan, what other thoughts we will get? Only those thoughts to which we are attached we will get. We can let go of those thoughts. Now, to explain how that happens, I take my daughter's journey again and again. In one of the ways in which Bhagavan entered her life, some 3-4 dogs attacked her and she called me in high state of fear. And it was about 4:30 in the morning. And I started chanting Ramana Ramana. You chant Ramana Ramana with me, I said. So she started chanting Ramana Ramana with me. And in a few seconds, the angry dogs, they all quietened down. Because I said to her, Bhagavan is present in both of us and is present in the dogs also. We will hold him. Somehow he comes to our mind in those times. So I was chanting and she held. And the dogs quieted. Not only that, one of the dogs took her up to the hostel because the train lands up in Tirchi in very early hours. She has to walk the 2 kilometers from the gate of the college to the hostel. That is when the attack happened. Now, after that, or in the whole journey, I used to tell Archana, whenever you are walking that strip, you understand it is Bhagavan who is protecting you, not this fellow, not this father. So it is very clear to both of us that it is Bhagavan who is protecting you. You hold him, tell Ramana Ramana and cover the kilometer. Then when she came once, after that was clear to her, 2-3 iterations, it is clear. Then once she came during holidays and she was sitting near me in the sofa. So I was sharing with her, see, when you are in Tirchi, it is so clear to both of us that this fellow is not protecting you. It is Bhagavan who is protecting you. But you are now sitting near me. Am I protecting you now? No. The answer is a clear no. Even now when you are sitting near me in the sofa, it is Bhagavan who is protecting. So both of us have to hold Bhagavan. 6 months down the road, one more visit, our journey had progressed. So I said, forget about you being in Tirchi or you being near me. In both cases, who is protecting me? Who is protecting me? It is Bhagavan who is protecting me. So it is enough if I remember who protects me. I should not act as though I am protecting those thoughts. Who is protecting me? Who is my source if I hold? That is enough, isn't it? We asked each other. Then we understood how Bhagavan teaches Atma-Vichara. That it is enough if we see the source from which the I thought arises. That is the protector for everyone. Now, that is why we can safely let go of the thoughts, because it is never the ego who is protecting the other entity. It is only Bhagavan. So, one method of letting go of thought in practice in Atma-Vicharam and to go to the Atma Tattvam is to be free of like and dislike. One other method is surrender to Bhagavan. Now, we find that this Sakshi Bhavam is a common practice in schools, in colleges, in institutions. In the US, I have had the privilege of going there 2-3 times. We find that even in the military, even in recruitment, one of the senators there has introduced the Sakshi Bhavam, the mindfulness technique, as one of the courses to be undergone before they are inducted into the. Now, it is nothing but what is contained in this verse. Can we be in the sattvic mode? So when some of our children are taught these shlokas, what really happens? Bhagavan used to teach Upadesha Saram to children, and one of the devotees who was standing nearby, he chuckles, and Bhagavan asks, "Why are you chuckling?" And the devotee says, "Bhagavan, the meaning of Upadesha Saram, after 20 years of being with you, I don't know. Now, how can these children know it?" Then Bhagavan gives him the clue. He says, "No, it is not like that. Now, when these words are deeply imprinted in them, when the situation arises, like it arose for Archana and me, when the situation arises, the mantra will rise and protect them. The words from Upadesha Saram will rise and protect them. That is why we have to put it in them." Now, what happens in our Bhakti Margam, what happens when we have faith in Bhagavan is that at one point in our journey, we surrender the like and dislike to Bhagavan. Why I should have like and dislike? Why I should say this is a good person, this is a bad person? In today's morning satsang, Venkatesh ji was reading that somebody was asking, what is the difference between liking and hatred? Bhagavan says there is no difference. Both are of the same nature. That is why both Prahalada and Hiranyakashipu are given moksha. The one who is having Paramartha Bhakti, the love, he also lets go of all likes and dislikes and only likes one. And the one who is hating also is constantly thinking of Vishnu only. One is given moksha by samhara, one is given moksha by embracing. But both are liberated, says Bhagavan. There is no difference between love and hatred. They are both made of same material. So one has to cross both here itself. The division of consciousness as love and hatred has to be crossed here itself, and it can be done through surrender. At one point in our journey in Bhakti, we surrender our likes and dislikes to Bhagavan. That is when we come to the Sakshi mode in Bhakti also. We will see many bhaktas. I was traveling with a Madhva practitioner, a bhakta, to Chennai. In his car we were going, and the way he was saying about Guru Tattva, there was no duality in him. There was no feeling that he was feeling that his Guru is the Guru of the entire world. It is not, he was the Guru of only Madhvas. He was the Guru of the entire creation. Sir, he is the Guru of entire creation. So you call him by different name, I call him by different name. How does it matter? That was his approach. So the Bhakti Marga too brings to the Sakshi Bhava, the complete freedom from likes and dislikes. But one can teach one's children to be free of this directly also. Why don't you surrender your likes and dislikes to Bhagavan and observe? We find this teaching percolating into the community in the for them to deal with their psychological problems, they have adopted the Sakshi Bhava. It is called as mindfulness technique. What I am trying to point out is that Atma Vicharam automatically brings about the Sakshi Bhava. Atma Vicharam automatically removes the likes and dislikes in one, and one is able to see how one can, as we read in last week's talk from the books from Westerners, it was by one Mr. Dawson, and he mentions to us that Atma Vicharam of Bhagavan not only took it towards the self within, but it also improved his relations with the others, because what actions were done for approval of others now turned into actions emanating from self-respect. Atma Vicharam gives us self-contentment, self-respect, and the actions had their source in that witness. And he goes ahead and says, and there was a respect for others, as each one of them is the self according to Bhagavan. So I was respecting each of the others, not by their behavior, not by my judgment of them, but I would look upon them as the self itself. He says, so automatically self-inquiry brings this about, and we find that even in witnessing, none of the benefits can be held. None of the benefits, they popularly say that witnessing brings about a better performance at work, because witnessing is nothing but detachment. This morning, my better half and I, we were discussing, and she was saying, I just put this before the committee saying, I have no personal interest in this. I said, that is exactly what is witnessing. That is what is detachment. And that purity there, that there is no personal element in this, that work is done with pure detachment, is the presence of that witness, the Sakshi Bhava. Now, there is a Christian mystic who says, detachment is unconditional love. Detachment, Bhagavan also says, one who is in detachment is in permanent solitude. Even though he may be in the continuous work situation, he is the one who is really in the forest, because he is not attached to the work. This detachment comes in witnessing. Witnessing brings about detachment, but the point is the Triphuti is still retained. That is why Bhagavan says this stage should also be considered as Abhasa. The Chidabhasa is retained, is our consideration we should take, and we should not stop till Kevalam Brahma Matram of his teachings are reached. Till our consciousness abides in that, we should not stop. This understanding of like, dislike, and the various discussions I have put forth, how the ethics and Bhagavan's own diamond rule of ethics, how it comes. Bhagavan tells, whatever we give to others, we give to ourselves. Now, obviously, this is in the area of Triphuti. It is not about Kevalam Brahma Matram, Bhagavan is saying there. Therefore, see how that ethic is derived. If in everyone there is this Sarva Sakshi, then whatever we are giving to the Sarva Sakshi, who is within us. Though Ekanam Devade Endra, the Sakshi is not many Sakshis, the Sakshi is Ekanam Devan. So I need not look to easiest Sakshi. Why is not behaving like a witness? No. If I look at, because they are also thoughts inside me, the other is a thought inside me, one should look at it without like and dislike. The second and third persons are also dropped in the Sakshi Bhava. There is no other. There is Ekanam Devane Endra. As the Shruti says, there is only one God. When you come to the Sakshi Bhava, you are in that. You are abiding in the Sakshi. Now we find that when we look at the Jnana, the various stages of Jnana Bhumikas discussed by Bhagavan in the book the spiritual instructions, Upadesha Manjari, the discussion between Bhagavan and Swami Natanananda, and the Jnana Bhumikas are mentioned in the talks also in two different places. You can see the index and have a look. So in the Jnana Bhumikas, we find Subhecha, Vicharana, Tanumanasi, then Sattvapatti, then Sattvapatti, then it is about the non-attachment, then it is about Padartha Abhavani, and finally about Turiyaga. The stage about non-attachment, Asham Shakti is the non-attachment. When we look at that and connect it with the witness, the Sakshi Bhava, Bhagavan says that the Bhumikas are Subhecha, the desire that we should get free from this karma, this world of bondage. We should get free because Ulaga Purul Undrilavadu Sugam Enbadillai, says Bhagavan. There is no real happiness in any of the objects. So, first is the Subhecha, then there is Vicharana. Subhecha should lead to Vichara. Vichara will lead to Tanumanasi. Tanumanasi means there will be a stage where the witness is experienced, the Sakshi Bhava is experienced, but then there is slippage back to like and dislike. There is slippage, primarily the identity is still of like and dislike. The Jiva Bhava is not lost, but the Sakshi Bhava is experienced. And Bhagavan says in Sattva Apati, the gaining of the Sattva Guna, as was said, when you come to Sattva Guna, you become a witness. That is Jivan Mukti mode. The like and dislike goes out of the Jiva Bhava goes, one becomes Sakshi, one becomes Mukti of Jiva Bhava, one becomes a Sakshi. What happens in this Sakshi? This very Loka becomes Kailasa. Wherever you are, you find that is Kailasa. Because who is running? Only Ramana is running. Only Ramana is the one who is the force behind everything. Our job is only to witness. Now, that is the Sattva Apati. The Asam Shakti is detachment from objects. So, such a teacher who is a Sattva Apati teacher will be teaching about detachment from objects. Then we find Padartha Abhavani. Padartha Abhavani is what we will be seeing in the next verse, where the objects do not appear, where witnessing of objects is not there. Therefore, there is only witnessing of Akasha Tattva. There is only Chidakasha which is seen. The gap between the objects is seen as reality. The objects are dropped. The atoms are gone. The gap between the atoms is what is seen. So, that is from Asam Shakti, the teacher moves on. Why I call them teacher is, they are all now Jivan Muktas. So, whatever they will be sharing will be of the nature of, so what is there? Why are you worried? These objects are really not there. It is all only Akasha Tattva. You look up at the sky. The moment you look at the sky, your mind becomes blank. They will give you another support. Looking at the prana, holding the mantra. No, in addition, just look at the sky. Sky is black, your mind will go blank. From there you start Atma-vichara. So that will be the next verse. That is Padartha Abhavani. Then finally, when the objects are not appearing, but the sky is appearing, the Chidakasha is appearing. The Chidakasha is also transcended by Kevalam Brahmamatma. That is Turiyaga. So Bhagavan is teaching us Turiyaga Sthiti only. You aim for the skies, at least you will land up on the terrace. Bhagavan doesn't slip from that. He always talks only of self-alone case. Kevalam Brahmamatma, Turiyaga Sthiti, the transcendental state where there is no division as witness, the act of witnessing and the witnessed. There is only the Kevalam Brahmamatma. Now, coming back to the stages, we find that we reach the witnessing mode even in the stage of Sattva Apati. From there, many of the people who have been interviewed, if you take Buddha Gaskam and you see those interviews, many of them say there is a maturation in me even after coming to witness mode. So what they are telling only they are moving from the modes that are mentioned in the Jnana Bhumikas after the Sakshi mode. But in Bhagavan, are these stages there? Are there possibilities for mentioning I am maturing? Neither is there, because all these are unreal. The entire stage of Jiva Bhava, the progress to self, is all unreal, and it is Kevalam Brahma. And it wipes off the entire story about what all we did, what all we did not do. We came to Sakshi Board, all that is erased. And this Purna alone is there. So the teaching of Sakshi Bhava should help our sadhana of Atmajnana and not make that as a practice, because there is a hidden danger in the that sadhana, as I shared with you, because I had come to Sakshi mode, but my ego was still claiming I am a Sakshi. I am witnessing the thought-free state. Why are you not witnessing? So I still had division as me and another. Therefore, Atma Vicharam should be relentlessly pursued. But we can take the essence from the learning of this verse, that can one be a witness and drop the thoughts. We'll set in Atma Vicharam for 10 minutes.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, who shines as the self in all beings. By that grace, as Nandakumarji reminds us at the beginning of every class, we are able to do meditation on Bhagavan's teachings. And it's a very, very significant subject in the spiritual arena, the Sakshi. And Nandakumarji took us through the whole gamut. His mention of the Manasakshi took my mind to an incident. The former president R. Venkatraman was a boy of 18-19, and he had gone with Radhakrishnan and others who were senior philosophers as well, and they had a discussion with Bhagavan on various matters of Advaita, I think, throughout the day. In the evening, R. Venkatraman approached Bhagavan separately and he said, Bhagavan, many things have been talked about the whole day, but I am afraid I did not understand even one word of what was spoken. Can you tell me something which I should practice? Then this was told to me personally by R. Venkatraman when I visited him in his Delhi home. He was a nonagenarian at that time. Appa was no more. I had visited him. And he told me, this is what happened, Ma. Then he said, then Bhagavan told him, okay, whenever you have to take any decision in your life, in anything, when you want to take any decision, do you know there is something within you which tells you it is right or wrong? Have you observed? There is something within you which tells you this is a right decision, this is a wrong decision. Now, that is the voice of the divine within you. Always heed that voice and act. He said, this is how my life has been. Okay, so here Bhagavan has told something very simple. He has not told him there is no right, there is no wrong. He has told him probably that was his role in life. He had to constantly discriminate in the world, and Bhagavan very naturally will guide each one according to their role. And he was told that he must always connect to the voice within, that Manasakshi. But the surrender element was introduced there, as Nandakumarji said, because it was not his decision, it was the divine voice, and he had to heed it, whether he liked it or not. So likes and dislikes were also surrendered. See, sometimes when you take a decision, you want to do something, but he very clearly will not do what the inner voice tells him not to do, whether he likes it or dislikes it. So Bhagavan wiped out the likes and dislikes for him and connected him also in surrender to the divine within, saying it is a divine which will guide you, and always be in tune with that. Don't go by what you like and dislike, what your mind prompts you to do. So in that way, that Manasakshi was connected, and likes and dislikes were removed without pointing out that they were removed. They were automatically crossed. And probably Nandakumarji always says how he held on to the truth. So that is the stage of sadhana, of holding on to the truth. But as Bhagavan always connects within, he connected him within in that as well. Then if we look at the pure surrender, we find it in Bhagavan's Padikam Kurayum Gunamum Niyallal Yenne Nivatre Yennuire. There is no good, there is no bad. When everything is you, where is the question of my thinking of anything as good or bad? So, only give me love. Only that love alone remains. Love as self is love. So, Kadal Perikke Taruvaye. Only give me that awareness. Don't give me anything else. I'm not interested because they're all you. So, in that, through the surrender, the discrimination between the good and the bad vanishes. By seeing everything as Arunachala, everything as Bhagavan. This is also what Bhagavan has indicated to us. Then when we come to the actual practice of Sakshi Bhava, I feel that it is embedded in self-inquiry. How is it embedded in self-inquiry? If we see, it is like the first step if we take in self-inquiry. For whom are these thoughts? That is the first question we ask. For we become aware that there are thoughts. At that point, we are intermingled with the thoughts. We are not separated from them as Sakshi and thought. We are running with a running mind, as Bhagavan says. But when we ask ourselves, for whom are these thoughts? At that point, what happens? Already, and when the answer comes, they are for me, already the thoughts and I have been separated. I have become the witness, the Sakshi of the thoughts. At that point itself, it is very clear to me that how do I say they are my thoughts? Only because I am witnessing them and they are not I myself. So, there itself, the Sakshi Bhava has been introduced by Bhagavan. That step is introduced and it is to be crossed. So, that step is already introduced. And how does it work when one recognizes that everything that is a thought is not I? Anything that is, see, the reverse is there. No? Anything that is a thought is not I. If they are all my thoughts, then anything that is a thought cannot be I. Then one recognizes that what is a thought? A thought is an experience. Bhagavan says all experiences are thoughts. An experience will have duality in it. So one recognizes as part of asking for whom is this thought, as part of observing the thought and questioning it with for whom is this thought, one would recognize that I am a witness is a thought. I am a witness has to be a thought. The Sakshi Bhava has to be the thought. The Sakshi is not a thought, but the Sakshi Bhava is a thought. So long as one has a Bhava, any Bhava, that is a thought, Bhagavan says in self-inquiry. So that Bhava will also be inquired into and it will automatically be dropped in that, it will be merged in that question, who am I? See, who am I is when there is absolutely no Bhava, who am I? That is actually the question. When there is absolutely no thought, who am I? So any thought arising is still I am in the realm of thought. So one gets back to the self because that the who am I by its very nature, it will make us understand that any thought is not I. And a bhava, any bhava is thought. Obviously, it is a bhava. So Bhagavan takes us very subtly, he crosses this for us. And the importance of it is there because we have to cross that. We have to cross that point. Many people ask me, why should we ask for whom are these thoughts? Why not start with who am I? You can start with who am I. There is no harm. But so long as there is a bhava, one has to recognize the bhava is not I. One has to see the separation from the bhava. So long as there is thought, that's what Bhagavan says in Ashtakam. If there is no I thought, there is going to be no other thought. Indrahamenum ninaivenil pira ondrum illai pira nenel edil. If any thought arises, that means your I thought has arisen prior to that arising of that thought. So ask for whom is this thought. So if there is a thought, one has to return to that bhava, to the core bhava, and then of course Bhagavan says, Isha jivayor veshadhi vida satsva bhavato vastu kevalam. So that Sakshi is the Ishvara, and so long as one has that limited bhavana, it becomes a jiva. So inquire and get back is what Bhagavan says. And self-inquiry being all inclusive, it includes that, it includes the surrender also, because there will be, when all our thoughts, there is dislike of any one thought. That's what Bhagavan says. You cannot like any thought. If you like it, you will hold it. So you are not going to like it. You are not going to dislike it because dislike is also holding. So both are not there in self-inquiry. So there is common treatment of all thought. That surrender of accepting that everything is a thought, it's a mere thought, is there in self-inquiry. So self-inquiry includes every aspect of sadhana. That is the grace of Bhagavan, and that's why Nandakumarji often tells us that it is Bhagavan himself. Self-inquiry is Bhagavan himself come to us. The Jnanamalayam nadandu varave kande. That's the immense grace of Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Namo.